parrot clung to the rusted bars of its cage, trembling as the cold night wind slipped through the cracks of the abandoned shed. Its feathers, once emerald and radiant, were now dulled, with patches missing from harsh neglect. A flickering bulb above buzzed faintly, casting shadows that twisted across the walls like silent threats. The bird's amber eyes darted toward the heavy boots of a man pacing outside, his voice sharp and cruel. He muttered, "Useless creature, nothing but noise." The parrot lowered its head, recalling faint echoes of laughter and sunlight long ago. Hunger gnawed at its hollow belly, and the sound of distant dogs barking added to the suffocating fear. It opened its beak, not to mimic words but to cry, a low, broken sound that carried a story of captivity and sorrow. The night seemed endless, heavy with despair, and in that darkness, the parrot's hope was caged as tightly as its fragile body. The shed door groaned open, letting in a gust of freezing night air that carried the scent of rust and damp earth. The parrot huddled tighter in its cage, feathers puffing in a futile attempt at warmth. The man tossed a handful of stale seeds onto the cage floor, his voice dripping with indifference. He muttered, "Eat or starve, I don't care." The parrot's eyes followed the scattered seeds, but hunger warred with fear, and it dared not move. In the silence, a distant owl hooted, a sound of the free world, mocking the bird's prison. The parrot thought of flight, of endless skies, but the chains of reality dragged its spirit back down. Shadows from the swinging bulb danced across the walls like ghosts of forgotten days, reminding the parrot of everything lost. The parrot shifted slowly, talons scraping the rusty floor of the cage as it inched toward the seeds. Each step carried both hunger and dread, the sound of the man's boots echoing like thunder in the confined space. The bird's wings twitched with longing, but they were clipped, ragged remnants of what once carried it through open skies. The man leaned against the wall, eyes dark with disdain, and sneered, "Pathetic thing." The words cut deeper than any cage, shackling hope further. A soft whimper escaped the bird, half cry, half whisper, fading into the damp air. The shed felt heavier, its air thick with despair, as if freedom itself had forgotten the parrot. The parrot finally pecked at a seed, the taste dry and bitter, scraping its throat. A cough rattled its fragile body, echoing against the metal bars. The man chuckled darkly, lighting a cigarette, smoke curling into the cold air. He said, "All you're good for is noise." The bird's chest heaved, eyes burning not from the smoke, but from a longing too vast to name. It glanced toward the shed's narrow window, where moonlight slipped in, a silver reminder of a world out of reach. The light kissed the parrot's scarred feathers, whispering of skies wide and free. The parrot closed its eyes for a moment, clutching that fragile sliver of hope. The night deepened, silence wrapping around the shed like a suffocating shroud. The parrot curled low in the cage corner, head tucked beneath a wing, trying to hide from cold and cruelty. The man's footsteps faded as he slammed the door shut, leaving only the faint hum of the flickering bulb. Darkness and loneliness pressed in, yet the moonlight through the small window lingered like a promise. In its dreams, the parrot saw itself soaring high above forests and rivers, wings strong and free. But the rusted bars clamped down, dragging the vision into despair. The bird whispered within, "Will freedom ever come?" The morning sun crept faintly through the cracks of the shed, but its warmth did not reach the parrot. The bird blinked slowly, eyes dulled from hunger and sleepless nights. A faint memory stirred within. Once it had perched in a garden, feathers glowing in daylight, children laughing nearby. The parrot let out a faint sound, soft and broken, as though recalling joy now lost. Outside, the cruel man muttered curses as he left, slamming the door behind him. The silence pressed down heavier than chains. The parrot whispered in its own way, not with words, but with longing. It did not wish merely for food or water. It wished for connection, for the simple touch of kindness. Even in despair, a flicker of hope lingered, buried deep in its weary chest. The parrot stirred as faint footsteps echoed outside the shed, lighter and slower than before. The door creaked open, and instead of the harsh voice, a gentle tone filled the air. A young woman stepped in, her eyes wide with concern as they fell upon the cage. She whispered softly, "Poor thing, what has he done to you?" A parrot tilted its head, uncertain, amber eyes searching her face for danger or kindness. For the first time in years, the bird sensed something different in the air, compassion. Its chest heaved as if trying to hold onto this fragile moment, as though afraid it would vanish like smoke. The silence between them was heavy yet tender, a bridge forming across fear and suffering. The woman crouched lower, her hand hovering near the bars but not touching. She spoke in a whisper, "It's okay, I won't hurt you." The parrot shuffled nervously, feathers trembling, but its eyes locked onto hers with hesitant trust. A moment passed, fragile, delicate as glass. The air carried warmth that had been missing for too long. The parrot let out a tiny chirp, faint yet filled with yearning. Tears gathered in the woman's eyes as she murmured, "You deserve better than this cage." Outside, the world carried on, but within the shed, a fragile bond had been born. The parrot felt it deep inside, like a heartbeat of hope awakening after years of silence. The parrot stretched its wings weakly, a gesture of longing more than strength. The woman's face brightened at the sight, as though the bird's silent plea reached her heart. She whispered, "You remember freedom, don't you?" The parrot's feathers quivered, and for a fleeting second, its eyes sparkled with the memory of skies once its own. The moment was broken as footsteps approached, the heavy gait of the cruel man. The woman's expression hardened, jaw tightening, but she did not move from the cage. The parrot's body stiffened in fear, yet it could still sense the warmth that radiated from her presence. Even in the shadow of cruelty, kindness had taken root. The shed grew tense as the man entered, his scowl, sharp eyes narrowing at the woman kneeling near the cage. "What are you doing here?" he barked, voice slicing the fragile air. The parrot froze, its heart pounding like a drum, fear gripping its chest once again. But the woman stood her ground, her voice steady as she replied, "This bird doesn't belong in this prison." The parrot watched the confrontation unfold, unable to understand words, but sensing the clash of power and compassion. Its body shook, torn between terror and the faint spark of trust that had just been lit. In that moment, the parrot realized that kindness might not be a fleeting dream. It might be its only chance at survival. The shed filled with tension as the man's voice thundered, "Stay away from my bird." His glare pierced the woman, who stood her ground though fear flickered in her eyes. The parrot cowered, feathers shivering, trapped between two worlds, cruelty and compassion. The man's rough hand rattled the bars of the cage, making the parrot screech in panic. The woman gasped, stepping closer, her voice breaking. "You're hurting him." The parrot's amber eyes darted wildly, chest heaving with every breath. The shed seemed to shrink with every sound, its cracked walls holding more shadows than light. For the bird, the cruelty was nothing new, but the kindness now at risk felt unbearable to lose. The man stepped back, his laughter cruel and hollow. "He's nothing but noise, a worthless thing," he spat, turning his back on the cage. The parrot crouched low, trembling, every feather heavy with despair. The woman's eyes softened as she knelt by the cage again, whispering, "Don't listen to him, little one." The parrot tilted its head slightly, recognizing the gentleness in her tone. A broken chirp escaped its beak, carrying the sound of fragile trust. The shed's silence grew sharp, every shadow stretching longer, as if the world itself weighed down on the small cage. The bird's heart beat unevenly, pulled between torment and hope. Later that night, the parrot huddled on the cage floor, its belly empty, its mind weary. The man had stormed out, muttering curses that echoed long after he left. The woman lingered, her face illuminated by moonlight from the cracked window. She whispered softly, "I'll come back for you, I promise." The parrot's eyes widened faintly, hope flickering like the fragile flame of a candle. Its wings shifted weakly, feathers rustling in the still air. Outside, a cold wind howled, rattling the shed's walls, as though warning that cruelty would return with greater force. The parrot closed its eyes, clinging to her promise as if it were the only warmth left in the night. The next day, the man returned with a chain in his hand, eyes cold with control. He muttered, "Time to teach you silence." The parrot's heart pounded, wings flaring in panic as the chain clinked against the cage bars. The woman, arriving at that moment, froze in horror. She shouted, "Stop! You can't do this!" The parrot screeched, sound raw and desperate, filling the shed like thunder. The man snarled, glaring at the woman. "Stay out of this, or you'll regret it." Fear and defiance clashed in her eyes, but she didn't move. The parrot pressed against the cage wall, body quivering, terror radiating through every feather. The shed vibrated with tension, every sound louder than life itself. The woman's voice cut through the chaos, trembling but firm. "If you hurt him, I'll tell someone. I won't let this continue." The man's face twisted in rage, veins bulging at his temple. He slammed the chain onto the floor, the metallic clatter echoing through the room. The parrot froze, its breath rapid, eyes wide with terror. Yet beneath the fear, a glimmer of hope remained. The bird had seen something stronger than cruelty. It had seen defiance. And though its cage remained locked, the parrot felt that change was stirring, fragile but unstoppable. The woman returned at dusk, her face tense with determination. She crouched near the cage and whispered, "I know what he's done to you." The parrot blinked slowly, amber eyes reflecting sorrow. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a worn photograph she had found in the man's cluttered drawer. It showed the parrot perched proudly on a child's arm years ago, feathers bright and whole. The child's smile radiated joy, the bird's wings unbroken. The parrot tilted its head, trembling, recognizing the faint memory of love. The woman's voice softened. "You were once cherished, weren't you? He took that from you." For the first time, the bird let out a weak but deliberate mimic of laughter, a ghost of what it once knew. The woman's hands shook as she tucked the photograph close to her chest. "You weren't always his prisoner," she said firmly. The parrot's eyes grew moist, head tilting in slow recognition of her words. The cruel man's footsteps echoed outside, heavy and careless. The parrot let out a sharp cry, wings flaring in panic, as if warning her of his approach. She whispered, "I'll protect you, I promise," determination carving steel into her voice. The shed door swung open with a crash, and the man glared at her, suspicion in his eyes. He barked, "What are you doing with that?" The parrot pressed low to the floor, trapped in fear but clinging to the faint spark of trust. The man snatched the photograph from her hands, crumpling it in his fist. "Worthless memory," he snarled. The parrot screeched, voice raw and jagged, echoing off the shed walls. The woman stood tall, her eyes blazing, and shouted, "You broke him, but I won't let you keep him like this." The parrot's body shook violently, yet inside, a pulse of courage stirred at her defiance. The man's face twisted with rage as he spat. "He's mine, and no one takes what's mine." The parrot's amber eyes glistened, torn between despair and the growing light of hope. The clash of cruelty and compassion filled the shed like a storm ready to break. The parrot's cry did not fade, it grew, sharp and relentless, shaking dust from the rafters. The man stumbled back, startled, covering his ears. The woman seized the moment, kneeling by the cage, whispering urgently, "Show him you're stronger than his cruelty." The parrot flapped its wings with a force that rattled the bars, a sound more powerful than words. The man shouted, "Shut up," but the bird did not stop. Its voice carried both agony and defiance, echoing like a truth too strong to silence. The woman's tears fell, her voice trembling. "Yes, fight, little one, fight." In that moment, the cage felt less like a prison and more like a battlefield. Silence finally fell, but it was not the silence of defeat. The parrot's chest heaved as it perched taller, wings half spread, eyes glowing with defiance. The woman rose beside him, her voice steady. "He remembers what you took, and now so do I." The man's face drained of color, his confidence faltering for the first time. The parrot let out a final cry, strong and clear, a sound that carried both pain and promise. The shed felt transformed, no longer just a place of suffering, but a chamber of truth revealed. The woman whispered fiercely, "This ends soon." And though the cage remained locked, the parrot knew a new chapter had begun. The shed air was thick with tension, the smell of rust and smoke clinging to every corner. The man stormed forward, chain in hand, his voice booming, "This ends tonight." The woman planted herself between him and the cage, her fists trembling, but her stance unbroken. The parrot flapped wildly, screeching, wings slamming against the bars like a drumbeat of resistance. The man shoved the woman aside, fury burning in his eyes, but she held her ground, shouting, "You will not break him again." The parrot's cry pierced the chaos. Its sound fierce, a song of survival echoing louder than his cruelty. The battle for freedom had begun. The man roared, shoving harder, but the woman did not move, her voice steady. "You lost your right the day you hurt him." The parrot's eyes burned with urgency. Its wings spread wide despite their ragged state. The man's face twisted with rage, veins bulging as he raised the chain high. The woman shouted, "Stop!" and lunged to grab his arm. The parrot screeched again, the sound filling every crack in the wooden walls, echoing like a storm that refused to die. In that moment, the bird was no longer voiceless. It was a force of resistance, demanding to be seen, demanding to live. The struggle raged, the chain clattering as the woman fought to wrest it away. The parrot banged against the cage, desperate cries slicing through the night. The man shoved her hard, and she stumbled, nearly falling. But her eyes never left the bird, fire burning brighter with every breath. "He is not your possession," she shouted. The parrot's claws scratched the bars until blood glistened faintly, pain mixing with defiance. The shed seemed to shake with the clash of wills, cruelty against compassion. The man growled, "He belongs to me." But the parrot's cry answered louder, "No." The chain slipped from the man's hand, crashing to the floor with a metallic clang. The parrot flapped harder, filling the room with a storm of wings and shrieks. The woman stepped closer to the cage, her hand pressed firmly against the bars. "You're not alone," she whispered. The man lunged to grab her shoulder, but she twisted free, eyes blazing. The parrot's body quivered, its gaze locked on hers, as if drawing strength from her defiance. The shed was alive with sound and movement, the oppressive silence shattered. The balance had shifted, cruelty trembled, compassion stood unbroken. The man staggered, defeated, as the woman stood tall, her voice cutting sharp, "This ends now." The parrot perched upright, wings half spread, eyes glowing with unbroken spirit. The chain lay silent on the floor, powerless, stripped of its threat. The woman's breath trembled, but her resolve was steel. She placed both hands on the cage, her whisper fierce, "You will be free." The parrot's chest rose high, its cry no longer weak, but a call of defiance, echoing through the night. The shed that once held only despair now roared with the sound of survival. The shed was silent now, the chain forgotten on the floor, the man's shadow gone. The woman knelt by the cage, her breath steady though her hands trembled. She whispered, "You're safe now." The parrot blinked, chest heaving, wings twitching as if unsure whether to believe. She carefully unlocked the cage, the rusty metal groaning as it gave way. The parrot stepped forward hesitantly, talons scraping against freedom for the first time in years. It paused, eyes locked on hers, as if asking if this moment was real. She nodded softly, tears glistening. "Yes," she murmured. "You are free." The parrot stepped out slowly, wings trembling, eyes wide with both fear and wonder. Its talons gripped the wooden beam of the shed, unsteady at first. The woman stayed perfectly still, her presence calm and reassuring. "Take your time," she whispered, voice soft as a lullaby. The parrot stretched one wing halfway, sunlight catching its worn feathers, painting them in shades of gold. For the first time, its body no longer pressed against cold iron but open air. The parrot chirped faintly, the sound fragile but alive. In that moment, survival transformed into the first true taste of freedom. The woman extended her hand, palm open, resting quietly on the beam. The parrot tilted its head, eyes locked onto her, chest rising quickly. For a moment, the air was heavy, the choice uncertain. Then the parrot shuffled closer, talons scraping gently toward her fingers. It did not perch on her hand, not yet, but it stood near enough to feel her warmth. The woman's eyes welled, her voice breaking with emotion. "You're brave." The parrot's wings twitched as if remembering skies long forgotten. Trust was not given freely, but it had begun to grow, fragile yet unshakable in its roots. Later that day, the parrot perched on a windowsill of the woman's home, outside the confines of the shed. The breeze lifted its feathers, sunlight warming its scarred body. Its eyes scanned the open sky, wide and endless, yet it did not fly away. The woman watched from nearby, her smile tender, whispering, "You'll know when you're ready." The parrot let out a stronger chirp, no longer broken, but still marked by its past. Freedom was close, but healing was closer. The bird felt it for the first time, not just survival, but belonging. As the evening sun painted the sky in hues of orange and violet, the parrot stood tall on the sill, wings half spread. It looked back once at the woman, amber eyes glowing with something new. "Trust." The woman whispered, "No matter where you go, you are never alone now." The parrot let out a cry, strong and full, carrying into the twilight. It did not fly yet, but it no longer felt like a prisoner. The scars remained, but they no longer defined it. The world was vast, and for the first time in years, it belonged to the parrot again. The next morning, golden light filled the small home, spilling across the windowsill where the parrot perched tall. Its feathers, though scarred, shimmered softly in the sun. The woman entered quietly, her steps light, as if not to disturb the fragile peace. She whispered, "Good morning, brave one." The parrot turned its head toward her, amber eyes glinting with trust. For the first time it spread its wings fully, though uneven, stretching wide toward the sky. The woman gasped softly, hand over her heart. In that single moment, the parrot was no longer a prisoner. It was a survivor ready to reclaim the world. Outside, the wind stirred gently, carrying the scent of trees and distant fields. The parrot leaned forward, talons gripping the sill, feeling the open air embrace its feathers. Its chest rose with each breath, stronger now, filled with purpose. The woman whispered, "The sky is yours." The parrot glanced back once, eyes shimmering with recognition of her words, before looking ahead again. The world stretched endlessly, no bars, no chains, only possibility. In that silence, the bird found its courage rising. For the first time, freedom did not feel like a dream. It felt like destiny. The parrot flapped its wings hard, the sound sharp and strong, echoing through the quiet house. Dust lifted from the sill as feathers shimmered in golden light. The woman stepped closer, tears glistening as she whispered, "Go on, it's time." The parrot hesitated, a flicker of fear in its chest, but then it remembered the years of darkness, the cruelty, the cage. With one powerful motion, it leapt into the air, wings slicing against the wind. The room filled with the rush of flight, a sound that felt like triumph. The parrot was airborne, free at last. Outside, the parrot soared higher, climbing into the vast blue sky painted with soft clouds. Each beat of its wings carried strength it thought was lost forever. Below, the woman stepped into the yard, shielding her eyes from the sun, watching in awe. She called softly, "Fly, my friend, fly." The parrot circled once above her, its cry ringing clear, echoing across the fields. It was not just a cry of freedom but of gratitude, a voice finally heard. The woman's heart swelled as she whispered to herself, "You made it." As the sun lowered toward the horizon, the parrot perched on a high tree branch overlooking the fields, the world stretching wide beneath it. Its amber eyes glowed, filled with peace. It was scarred but unbroken, marked by pain yet transformed by love. In the distance, the woman stood outside her home, looking toward the sky, her expression calm and proud. The parrot lifted its wings again, ready for tomorrow, ready for life beyond captivity. With a cry that echoed like music, it embraced the twilight. The story of a prisoner had ended, and the story of freedom had begun.